Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network, brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos Tequila is brought to you by those who drink it. We come to you on the Mike Francesa channel, on the Bet Rivers Network, on YouTube, and this is going to be the way it is 10 days before Thanksgiving and right through the holidays and through the end of the season. The only news that the Giants and the Jets are going to make is going to be off the field. It's not going to be on the field, obviously, with their records and their woeful play, and the fact that they're both out of contention 10 days before Thanksgiving. Um, as I told you last week, all the signs were there that Daniel Jones was going to get benched. You saw how angry the head coach was on the flea flicker. He thought he made the right call. He did. The play was a success because you didn't have one, you had two wide open receivers running where either one could have scored. And for whatever reason, he hesitated and wound up getting sacked on the flea flicker. I don't know exactly. I never went back and looked at the play again. I didn't study it, and I don't know what was said about why he hesitated the way he did. But you saw the anger that Dable had, and you knew that was the beginning of the end. There were some other plays in that game that were equally damning. Um, going into the season, they did not believe in Jones anyway. You got a guy who they have an out. They've obviously committed to him on a long 4 year deal, but they have an out after two. They're going to take that out. He is injury prone. They're out of it. They can't win at home. They can't score at home. The fans don't like him. Um, so, time for a change. Now, the reason for the change, we all know, hey, forget what he told you today. Because I went and listened to the media, Dable's media meetings and his interrogation today. Forget what he told you. He didn't tell the truth on any play, and he wasn't going to, but he didn't tell the truth on any answer. Um, Take this in steps. Why are they benching Jones? They're benching Jones because he's been bad. They're also benching Jones because he's injury prone. Running is his greatest strength, and he has a chronic neck problem, and they could be on the hook for big money if he gets hurt. They are done with him. They are going to draft a quarterback. We know that. So they're looking at the season right now. They're going to bench Jones and bury him. He's not the number two quarterback, folks. He's number three quarterback. And barring craziness, you're not going to see him in a game again in a Giant uniform. Now, he'll get a chance down the road to prove that it was not him, it was the Giants. Will he do that? We'll see. We've seen guys do it, we've seen guys not do it. We'll see what happens. Now, why is it DeVito instead of Locke? It's easy. Not easy to explain if you're the Giants. You got to lie through your teeth to explain it, but it's easy to understand. Giants have 4 home games left. They have Tampa Bay this week. They have New Orleans, Baltimore, and Indianapolis. They don't want 30,000 empty seats in December. They don't want 40,000 empty seats when they play the Colts the last week, the second to last week of the season on December 29th, I think it is. They don't want the place completely empty, or the fans throwing snowballs if it snows, or the fans booing or wearing bags or whatever. They want to try to create some excitement. So how do they do that? Well, they have a third string quarterback, not a second string. They paid $5 million for a second string. Now, why'd they do that? Let's stop there for a second. They did that because they didn't believe that DeVito was good enough to be the backup. So if they were having a playoff type season and Jones got hurt, they wanted a guy who could step in for a couple of weeks and keep them alive to get to the postseason. So if they had a season that had integrity, Locke would be the quarterback. Now, Locke's probably ripping mad. Also, Locke has a couple of incentives he could reach. Most of his incentives he can't reach, but there's some he could reach. But he's already made five. He got paid $5 million. Why'd you pay him $5 million if you knew DeVito was really good, or was at least a stellar backup? You didn't. he wouldn't have paid Locke $5 million. If they paid Singletary $6 million, they paid Locke $5 million. Do the math. What could they have done with that $11 million? Oh, let's see. I think you can figure that one out. Now, so they bury Locke and they put DeVito in. Why? DeVito could give them the best of both worlds. What's the best of both worlds? They play exciting football down the stretch. Now, if they could sign to win every game right now, they'd sign for that. That's not going to happen. They have to go play Baltimore. They have to play Baltimore at home. They have to play at Atlanta. They have to play at Philly. They're not winning those games. Those teams are going to the playoffs, and they're going to, most of those times, those games won't even be competitive. So now, with that being the case, what's the best scenario? Fill the building or give the fans something they can get excited about and rally around. Well, they like this kid from Northern Jersey. He became a little bit of a folk hero last year. Was he really good? No. Was he okay? Yes, he had a little winning streak, and he got himself, made himself a overnight celebrity in places, as a B-list celebrity, and his agent had him everywhere, and he was hawking everything he could hawk, which fine, it's fine. He's a kid from Northern Jersey who made good. Good for him. Let him have his couple of minutes in the sun. If they could get a couple of exciting games out of him, like this week, you go into the parking lot before the game, they're going to be all pumped up to see Tommy Cutlets again. Is anything magical going to happen to the team? No. But the fans like this. They'll show up to see him. So the best of all worlds, have them. Maybe they could beat Tampa right now because Tampa's defense is messed up. Now, Tampa's going to score on them, but they could beat them. Tampa's lost 4 games in a row. On top of that, then they play Dallas on Thanksgiving. Dallas is shot. They got 18 players on the injured list. They already on their backup quarterback. They have no running game. Lamb doesn't want to get hurt this year. They have nothing left to play for. They're going to have a new coach probably, unless you get a miracle next year. So they could actually beat Tampa or lose a tight game and maybe play an exciting game. And then have Dallas on Thanksgiving and maybe win that game, which gives them 11 days of goodwill and means that they have plenty of people in the stands for New Orleans 11 days later. So they've accomplished at least half of that. Now, there's a chance they stink, DeVito stinks, and the place is empty for the Colts and late in the season. It won't be empty for Baltimore because the Baltimore fans will come up the turnpike and buy the tickets and go to the game. Because Baltimore's going to need the game. So that's going to be a Raven home game. You know that. They're going to come up and buy the tickets. There's going to be a whole bunch of Raven fans there going crazy. It's a short hop up the turnpike, and boom, you're there. Come up 95, go right to Giant Stadium. So they can buy up all the tickets for that game. They don't want empty seats. They have a chance to give the fans maybe a little joy here because the fans obviously have taken to DeVito. All right. Now, there's some myth making in there where some people actually think DeVito's got a chance to be a star or something. Well, listen, let him dream. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not going to happen, but let him dream. Remember, he, got replaced late. I mean, he got hit and then he got replaced by Taylor when Taylor came back. If Taylor hadn't been hurt, Taylor would have played, but Taylor's a much better quarterback than DeVito. I mean, Taylor's a good backup. He's a good player. He's a legitimate player. DeVito would aspire to be anywhere near where Taylor is. Taylor's a guy who can play in this league. And he was hurt. Obviously, when Jones got hurt, then he comes in. And, hey, DeVito's shining moment was against the Packers. He beat Washington, but who cares? The Dallas game, he got a couple of touchdowns in the second half of a game that was 31-0 at the half, or 28-0 at the half. That was 49-17. He got a couple of TD passes in the second half, which got him on his way. Then he beat Washington. Then he beat New England in an ugly mess of a game. And then he beat Green Bay with a drive, which was his shining moment. And then the next week he got replaced in New Orleans. He got hit, and then he got replaced in New Orleans. Um, so that's what's going on here. The Giants are getting ready. See, the general manager and the coach firmly believe they are safe to get another quarterback, that they're going to get to be here, that Belichick is not going to be swept in here, that they're going to, and despite you're going to have people right up till Belichick goes somewhere else, you're going to have people saying he's coming to the Giants. I understand that. I doubt very much it's going to happen. The Jets are a complete no, but the Giants, I would always leave the door open a smidge, but I don't think it's going to happen. And I think they have already told these guys they're coming back, which is why they act the way they act. They wanted the right to draft their own quarterback. Now they're going to get it. And Dable's going to get a chance to develop that guy. And obviously, he and the general manager are tied at the hip. When they leave, they'll leave together. And I mean, the GM, let's be honest, he's had a couple of decent moments where he's drafted a couple of decent players, and he's had some colossal misses, and he's spent some money on players that make no sense. Hey, the Barkley thing's complicated. That's complicated. We all knew Barkley was going to go there and play great behind that Philly offensive line. That's not a surprise. But losing Barkley did not destroy this team. The teams are not built around running backs. It's just the way it is. Okay. It's not built anywhere in this league. The best running back numbers in the league belong to a guy who's behind the quarterback who's probably going to win the MVP. And that's in Baltimore, unless Josh has more heroics like yesterday and steals it. Now, I don't think Burrow can get it despite his numbers because of the record. So that's why it's DeVito. Let the fans have some fun. Maybe he will have a magic moment, pull a game out of the fire, excite the fans, anything that would make the fans happy over the second half of this dreadful, awful, too typical season in this era of giant futility. And that's what it is. Remember, John Mara stood in the locker room after the playoff victory over Minnesota and proclaimed, "We are back." Well, he was a little premature. They weren't back. But when people go back and look at the Giants, I understand it was not John Mara's era there, but John Mara was there. Was he in charge? No. But the Giants, over 25 years, played in 5 Super Bowls and won 4, including a couple of the great upsets in Super Bowl history. So do not for a minute ever, ever give the Giants the back of your hand when they had a 25-year run where they won 4 Super Bowls. All right, including 3 as underdogs and 2 as decisive underdogs. So that has to be taken into account. Now, that is part of the Giants. It's not part of their current history. They now have had a whole generation, and you can tie it to just when they went out and built this stupid stadium. But they have been a terribly run, terribly operated franchise now for almost a generation, and they're still not out of the abyss. They are as much in the abyss as they've ever been. They are back completely in it, just trying to find their way, looking for something that will give them clearance. Will they find that quarterback this year? We're not going to know right away. Was this a year to be in the top 3 or to get up there? Yeah, it was. The kid in Chicago is going to be okay. I don't know if he's going to be a star yet, but he's going to be okay. The other two are good. Daniels is really good, and May is good. And I told you from the beginning that Knicks was going to be good, especially in Sean's system. And I guess yesterday probably cemented everybody's idea that they don't have to worry about Knicks anymore. And then understand Bo Nix had a very different college career. He's not the youngest of rookies, but he understands how to play and he's coached by the right guy. That Denver team has gotten much, much better. And he's also operating now behind a very, very underrated offensive line, which makes a big difference. And yesterday he did something that had never been done before. A rookie quarterback throwing 4 touchdown passes, throwing for 300 yards and not turning the ball over. And, oh, excuse me, I left one out, and completing 80% of his passes. That's never been done before. But that's somebody else's glory. That's not the Giants. So the Giants now go back to Tommy. I guess the operative uh, nickname is Tommy Cutlets. I guess that is the most popular one right now. But whatever it is, listen, he's one of those guys that just comes in and catches on. It happens. We've seen it. We've seen it in basketball. We've seen it in baseball. We've seen it in other sports. It happens. He's from Jersey. He's a big underdog. He wasn't drafted. Okay. He's got the whole thing going for him. Northern Jersey, Sopranos, the whole thing, the family, the chicken palm. Hey, it all works if he can win some games and have some fun. And that's what they're trying to do with these games. So now you know why a very ticked off Lock is not playing. And I guarantee you he is. I guarantee you that went down even Jones expected it. And probably he and the head coach are probably on each other's last nerve by now, I would figure. I don't know that. Everyone tells me Daniel Jones is a very high class individual. I don't know him. That's what I'm told. But I would bet you they're on each other's last nerve. I'm sure Locke, who sat there as the number 2 all this time and isn't going to get a chance to play unless DeVito gets hurt or he really stinks the house, and he's going to have to really stink the house up. Remember, this was a guy that Dable was so afraid of that when he came into the Jet game because of an injury, they refused to throw the ball the rest of the game. And I'm like, am I watching the NFL? Didn't you know this about this guy before you had him dressed for the game? I mean, they didn't. They tried to win the game without a throw. I thought I was watching a high school game. Remember that game? Jets wound up winning it. I mean, then he wound up. Hey, he had 8 touchdowns. He had 2 of them he got 8 touchdowns, 3 intercepts. He won a couple of games. Yeah, he had 2 of those touchdown passes in a game that was like 50-0 in the second half against Dallas. I mean, let's not get crazy here. And he had 3 of them against the Redskins, who were dreadful. I could have beat the Redskins last year. But I understand why the Giants are doing it. They're trying to keep their building full, and they're trying to appease their customers in some way. Hey, we don't care about Locke. Throw the kid in. Let's see if he can, energize the place. He's got nothing to lose. And if he loses the game and the kid plays okay, hey, all the better. We're closer to getting a pick, which is where they're going next year now anyway. So that's where we are with the Jets as they get ready to play Tampa, to the surprise of no one. Listen, I saw a couple of video things. You know how you're looking at something and something comes along, and I saw a very sophisticated video link that was released that really buried Jones in a sophisticated way. It was not released by some fan. I can tell you that right now. I saw that last week and I'm like, this is sometimes it's an ugly business because they were throwing him right under the car. I mean, there was no question about that. I mean, they were basically saying, "Look at this. Look at what he's looking at. Look at the reads. Look at what he misses." Look, they even explained it to you. Look at how he missed the tight end. Look how he missed the blitz pickup. Look how he missed the hot receiver. Look where he bounced the ball. And I'm like, "Oh boy!" I mean, this was A, B, C, D, and add it up, folks. He stinks. Well, so you knew he was getting benched. They started their campaign. I would have been stunned. I said this the other day. I would have been stunned if he didn't get benched this week. Absolutely stunned. I didn't know if it was going to be Lockett DeVito. I did not know that. I thought DeVito had a chance for this reason, not Locke's money, because he's not going to hit too many. He could hit a couple of bonuses. He's not going to hit a whole lot of bonuses. He could hit a couple, but he's not going to bring anybody to the building. He's not going to energize. The fans aren't going to be going gaga in the tailgates in the parking lot at 9:30 on Sunday for him. They will be for DeVito. They'll all be there, going absolutely berserk next week, hoping he has his Tommy Cutlets moment. So that's why that's all there for that. So if the Giants can get anything out of it, they'll take it. Let me get to the Jets for a second. I know they're off this week. One of the themes I keep seeing now is, well, quarterback's washed up. That's the first thing. He had his hands on this and he's washed up. I'm sure he had his hands on a bunch of this, especially the Salah part, because Salah crossed him, and he and Salah were having trouble all the way back to training camp, which everyone knew wasn't a secret. I know that the first time I heard it, before someone that I trusted told me, the first time I heard it, they gave Boomer credit for saying it. And if Boomer said it, you knew he knew it. So Boomer was saying it, and he was dead on. And then it started circulating everywhere that he was having trouble with the head coach. And then I told you the day that the head coach came out and said he was going to scrap how Rodgers went to the line of scrimmage and played with the Cajuns. And I'm like, whoa, he's only been doing that through an entire, all-world career. That's led him to 4 MVPs in the Hall of Fame. I mean, so, and Rodgers didn't appreciate that, if you remember the post game that day. But here's the one thing that I differ with the fans on. The Jets have been a complete embarrassment. Woody screwed the whole thing up. He should have kept Salah. Now, I wanted Salah out, and I called for his dismissal and Hackett's demise. But I made it very clear that this would only work if they were going to bring in an offensive mind and a new head coach. They did not have the strength in that room, coaching-wise, to cover. They'd be better off with Salah under those conditions. And instead, he elevates a guy and makes the whole thing much worse because he's inept. And now the defense has failed dramatically without Salah and without Ulbrich running just the defense because he's so divided now, he doesn't know what he's doing. And they have no clue what they're doing. They are so badly coached, it's ridiculous. But I'm going to differ with one thing. I do not think Rodgers is done. Has he lost a step? Yes. Is he now, one of the great quarterbacks in the world or the greatest quarterback in the world? No, he's not. Does he need very good protection? Yes. Did he have that in key spots yesterday with the rookie at left tackle? No, he didn't. And that was going to be a problem. Did he have to get rid of the ball very quickly? See, Rodgers tries to minimize those big hits, so he'll release the ball before the guy even comes out of the break sometimes, just because he does not. He puts it in a place where he doesn't think he can get intercepted, but he's got to get rid of it so he doesn't take a bad wallop, because he can only take so many of those. But he is not done, folks. I've seen too many throws that are terrific. The second half of the Houston game was exquisite. Um, I don't buy that. He is right now 17 touchdowns, 7 intercepts. That's not great. That's not Rodgers like. Rodgers doesn't throw intercepts. I've seen every pass he's thrown this year. I'd say 3 of the intercepts were not his fault. They bounced off other guys, they bounced off their hands. 4 of them were his fault. He does not throw a lot of interceptions. You know that. He's only thrown double digits once in his entire career. Cousins has been credited with having a good year this year. They had a nasty game yesterday in Denver, but for the most part, he's got 17 touchdowns and 9 intercepts. Mahomes has got 15 touchdowns and 11 intercepts. Rodgers has got 17 touchdowns and 7 intercepts, and the 17 should be much higher. They've dropped balls in the end zone. They've dropped balls on the way to the end zone, and they have been dreadful in the red zone, which has killed this team. They're 23rd in the league. Why? Because the 2 things you have to do in the red zone to be good is you have to have a quarterback who has terrific mobility and the ability to not only run, but also have the ability to keep plays alive, a la Allen, a la Mahomes. Keep plays alive till you can get the ball where you need to get it. Rodgers can't do that anymore. Now, the other thing you have to do to be good in the red zone is you have to be able to run the ball. The Jets can't run the ball on short yardage. They've been one of the worst teams in the NFL on 4th down, one of the worst teams in the league on short yardage, which has killed them. They have lost 2 games because of the field goal kicker and 2 games that the defense gave up a touchdown in the final seconds to a first-year quarterback and to I think it was him, not Brissett in the game. You'd have to remind me if Brissett was in on that last drive or May was in on the last drive. I don't remember. I think Brissett was in now. I can't remember which one was in. But they gave up a touchdown on that drive because they were both in and out of that game. So I can't remember whether it was Brissett or May in the game at that time. But Pat scored with 22 seconds left to take the lead by 3 points in that game. And the Colts score with seconds remaining to win that game. So they lost 2 games because of the field goal kicker and 2 games on basically almost the last play of the game. If you give them 3 of those right now, if you give them 3 of those, they're 16-5. They're 6-5. If you gave me the right to restructure this team next year, I would tell you right now that they need to do certain things to be better. They have to still be better. They need a third receiver who's got some quality. They need more on the offensive line, and they need a really good offensive line coach. First of all, every coach is gone. Sorry, every coach is completely gone. I don't care if the GM stays or leaves. He's not going to be the issue one way or the other. Woody can decide that. I don't care. Because it's not going to be about personnel next year. I can get a guy to plug in what they need from the personnel standpoint. They need to make the right choice for a head coach and a staff. I think I mean, if I could sit in a room with Woody, and that's never going to happen. I could tell him I have a plan right now I think could work next year, and it would be with Rodgers at quarterback. And this team needs to revamp some of their stars because the loss of Johnson, the way they handled Reddick, the loss of Johnson, and then Mosley going down has killed that defense. Plus, losing the defensive lineman to Denver has killed them. He was an unsung hero, and they need run stoppers in the worst way, but you can get those. They're not hard to get. And that's killed them because it's taken away all their integrity on their defense. And they've been so badly coached on defense. And the talent they have in the secondary, which is good, has been really playing at such a poor level. I mean, what a bad year from Gardner. And not only that, a bad attitude, too. Get your act together. But they've lost 4 games, 2 on the last play of the game, 2 by the field goal kicker. They've lost 2 by 1 point, 2 by 3 points. They could easily turn that around, and I think they can get another year out of Rodgers if they will do the right thing personnel-wise and get real coaches in the building. They're the worst coach team in the league. And Rodgers has nothing to do with the coaching anymore. Stay out of it. Just play football. You want to input into the offense. You want to have a certain play. You want to put in or take out. You want a certain receiver on a certain route, or you want a certain thing on a certain play. Fine. You know what? You're not running the team anymore. Just play football. You got enough to worry about there. And keep yourself in good shape. And let the coaches coach the team. He's not done. And when I hear about, throwing the towel, he's worthless, he can't play anymore. Hey, that's not the problem. He has not been Aaron Rodgers. I'll give you that. But that's not the problem with this team. There's so many things that are the problem. The offensive line is terribly coached. They have some talent, but it doesn't play together. Defense, the lack of discipline on the defense. I mean, if Clemens is on that team next year, give me a break. I mean, they have rebuilding to do on defense, but it's stuff they can build around the guys they have there. There's a lot of talent on that team and in that room. But they need a really good coaching staff, and they don't have one. They are unbelievably badly coached. But my point on the Jets, because the season's over, is Rodgers is not done. I don't know where his head is if he doesn't get to pick the coach. I mean, him coming out and standing up that he wants Ulbrich back. Hey, if he brought that to me, if I was the owner, I'd say, if you want Ulbrich back, then you know what? I'll call my plane and I'll fly you back wherever you want to go because you're done here. Because that ain't happening. And if that's your choice, then you know what you forgot, that what you used to know about football, you forgot. Because that can't be really your choice. Because I'm not saying the man can't get a job in the NFL. He can, but he is not a head coach. I'm sorry. And he has done a terrible job here. And I don't care if he's a nice guy. That I don't care about. I only care about the results, and they stink. But quarterback's not done. You can get another year out of him if you want to. I don't even get 2. But if you put the offensive line in the right way and you coach it, you know how he's had to get rid of the ball so fast this year that they haven't even been able to run their routes. That doesn't have to be that way. He can still play. And I think he knows it. He knows it because he's a great player. He knows what he knows. He can still play. You see the glimpses. You see the throws. He can still play. And 17-7 is not good for Aaron Rodgers. But you know what? It's right in the middle of the league. The man doesn't throw interceptions. You saw the stat today. The Jets had never done it. It's only been done like 3 times in the last 25 years. To have the penalty situation they had yesterday, to have no turnovers yesterday, and to score as many points as they did yesterday and lose the game has only happened like twice in the league since in the last 25 years. That's a game you can't lose. You cannot lose that game. But they did, and they continue to find ways to lose, which is a sign of what? Thank you. Now, a couple things. Number 1, I got some emails. We'll get to those. See what's on your mind. I'm sure some of it will be stuff we covered today. Let me tell you about the newsletter. Now, sign up for the Mike Francesa podcast newsletter, which I don't think is out yet, but go to MikeFrancesa'Podcast.com. Mike Francesa, the M is capital, and then the Francesa is not. So all one thing. MikeFrancesa'Podcast.com, where you'll get videos, you'll get a chance for some Mike Francesa merchandise, which I haven't seen yet, and much, much more. So check it out. They're building this website and they're building this newsletter, and they're all excited about it. So check it out. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm right with you. So, but check it out. They're going to give away some goodies, so you got nothing to lose. Also, let me tell you about the prop packs. Check out the all new prop packs exclusively at Bet Rivers. Place the qualifying NBA same game parlay and you receive a prop pack. You'll earn extra rewards from your player card based on the number of points he scores. So you got something to root for that night on how the player plays. You can open rare cards that have top prizes of $10,000 in bonus credits. Terms and conditions apply. See the Bet Rivers app for full details. Tear into the action. Check out the prop packs. All right. Mike Francesa Podcast at gmail.com. Okay. Let's see what's on your mind today. Mike Francesa Podcast at gmail.com. Sean. I think Sean always starts it off. Did you have any interest in the Paul Tyson fight? All right. Both my boys were home because I got them tickets for the UFC fight at the Garden that Trump went to Saturday night, which was a very hot ticket. I don't like the UFC fighting. I think it's generational. My boys love it. My boys are 19, going on 20. That's Jack, and Harrison's going to be 18 this week, as a matter of fact, coming up. So happy birthday to her. They're both in college. They were both here for the fight. So Friday night they were here, and they said, "Dad, you gotta watch this. It's on Netflix." I said, "You guys aren't paying for that." I said, "No, Dad, it's on Netflix. We already have Netflix, so you don't have to pay anything for it." So I come in the room, and they're both they're in the living room. I was in my office, which is adjacent to the living room, and I was watching something else, and they're watching these women beat the heck out of each other, which is a prelim. And the woman has a gash that is just must have been a 15-stitch gash. I mean, and she's fighting her heart out. I mean, really just unbelievable how these women fought. So I'm watching the end of that, and then I know they're fighting. I'm like, "You're going to tell me you can actually bet on this thing?" They're like, "Yeah, there's a lot of money bet on it." I'm like, "You got to be kidding me." I said, first of all, the gloves with how many ounces they are, it's like he's getting hit. You're going to hit him with a pillow. Secondly, Tyson couldn't knock out you or me at this stage of his life, and this is a farce. And then I watched it, and all I would say is anybody, and I did send out. I was so annoyed by it, sitting through the last 6 rounds where Tyson once in a while did like a little shuffle with his feet just to let you know he was breathing. Never threw a punch. For the fight, he landed like 2 punches. They gave him 18, but he landed like 2. After the second round, he never threw a punch that had any interest in it. Okay. He stood up for 6 rounds. Paul never went near him. It was the worst slop I've ever seen. And it made me put out I went and I usually only hit the Twitter thing when I'm mad or I'm promoting something. And I said, anyone with this should be embarrassed and owes the public an apology. And anyone who bought a ticket for this, I hope the undercard was good, or I hope you saw something interesting that night, because that fight was like stealing money. And if anybody associated with those guys allows something like that to happen again, they should be ashamed of themselves and it should be outlawed. I mean, that was a disgrace. That was a non-competitive piece of garbage. That's what it was. So that's my interest in it. I actually watched it and I was mad I watched it. But I did watch it for free, and my boys were watching it in the next room. So all I had to do was walk to the next room to watch it. So I did. Alfonso, do you think Carl Banks is a Hall of Famer? Now, Carl's up for I believe he's a semifinalist this year for the Hall of Fame. I always take a pause with these questions. I'll tell you why. What I've learned through people I've known, and whether it's players or coaches, and through my own experiences as a broadcaster, is you cannot overstate how much the Hall of Fame means to everybody. When they tell you that the Hall of Fame doesn't mean anything to them, if they're a player or a coach, they are lying through their teeth. It's the last big hurrah. Remember, you've been out of the game for 5 years before you're eligible. So there's no more awards. You might be a broadcaster. You might be a big time broadcaster like a Tom Brady. And for Tom Brady, he doesn't have to think about going to the Hall of Fame. They're going to build him a wing. We know that. Okay. So, but for the guys who are borderline, Harry Carson was so bitter the years he didn't get in. I mean, he basically said, I'll never even, I wouldn't dignify them at this point. And as soon as he got in, he ran there. Hey, why not? He was thrilled. I know guys who were I know guys who cried when they didn't get in. I know players that cried. They were so angry. This means so much to everybody. That always makes me leery when I'm dealing with someone that, first of all, I know very well, which I know Carl really well. Secondly, Carl was a terrific player. And I always try to tell you this because it's important. The Hall of Fame is really for 1% of the players. It doesn't mean you're not a really terrific player if I say, like I've always said, like people ask me, Keith Hernandez is a Hall of Fame. I say, no, I don't think he is. He played a power position. He was a great fielder. He was defined the position defensively, but he's up against guys at the position who hit 500 home runs, and he wasn't a home run hitter, and he wasn't a 300 hit a lifetime, and he wasn't a home run hitter. If you're not one or the other, if you don't hit 335 and you don't hit home runs, it's very hard to get in an offensive position. It's not a knock. He's a wonderful player, a tremendous talent. I mean, there are guys who were Hall of Famers in their career and then got screwed for reasons like injuries, like Donnie Mattingly. Don Mattingly's a Hall of Famer. He was the best player in the league for years. He just didn't have enough years after his back went, so he doesn't get in. That's a tough one because he was a Hall of Famer. When I don't knock Keith Hernandez, when I don't say Keith Hernandez is a Hall of Famer, I still have incredible respect for his career. Same thing with Phil Simms, who I've been on the fence about, or Carl Banks, who was a tremendous player. But to me, I compare Carl to the guys like in that era. And I'll give you a guy who's a no brainer, like Junior Seau's a no brainer. Now I'm not getting LT. LT's not a no brainer. LT is an immortal. He's the best defensive player ever lived. So that's not anyone we're talking about. That's like talking about, Mickey Mantle or, Willie Mays. You're talking about Lawrence Taylor. So we're not talking about him. We're talking about a guy who's really good, like Junior Seau. He's a no brainer. But he's not LT, but he's a no brainer. Carl is a tough one. He's one of those borderline guys. And when I look at it, I think he's on the short side, but I don't think it should ever be taken as a slight because he had a tremendous career. Played 12 years, 9 years for the Giants. He had a tremendous career, won 2 Super Bowls. It was a really, really terrific player. Most players don't get in the Hall of Fame, and I know how much it means to these guys. So much I always feel bad saying that when I'm on the wrong side of it because I know how upset these guys get about this and how much it means because, hey, I've been fortunate enough to get into the Hall of Fames in my industry. It means a lot. If I didn't, I would, if I didn't, I would be hurt. I admit it, but I was fortunate enough to get in. So it means a great deal, and no one should act like it doesn't because it does to everybody, and it should because it's forever. It means you were the best in the industry that you were in your time. And that's special. And that's why it's really important to these guys. But I think Carl's on the wrong side, and I hate saying that. Paul, in naming DeVito the starter, the Giants wasted $5 million on Locke. Departed with Barkley. Blah blah blah. Okay, listen. A and B, I understand to the fans equals C. Barkley, I understand you wanted Barkley back, but Barkley wasn't going to make you a winning team. Now, if they were going to spend $5 million on a player they weren't going to play in Lock and $6 million on a backup running back in Singletary, then you could make the case to give the money to Barkley. Yes, and they would have been better off. Now, the kid's done a nice job, except he had a bad fumble, but Tracy's done a nice job. He's had a nice year. It's not the problem. It's not going to be the problem. You don't win or lose because of the running back. You just don't. That's not the way the game is played anymore. Joe, can you think of another letdown in recent times that equates to Rodgers and the Jets? Um, yeah, the Nets with what they built, I never thought it would work. I never thought it would work, and it didn't. And I don't think he built a team that way. I thought the Rodgers thing could work and would work. They got some bad injuries. That happens to every team. They mishandled the Reddick thing. Should have been here from the beginning. Hey, he's here, so should have been here from the beginning. And the coaching, as we talked about all last year, when we talked about what we all thought from this team and how they could be a playoff team and be a contender and this and that. And I picked them to win more than 10 games this year. I've said they'd win at least 9.5 over. I picked them as an over. And I thought they'd make the playoffs. But I always said to you, going back to last year, the one fear I have is that the coaching staff can wreck this team. And they derailed it completely. Case closed. They derailed it completely. I'm not holding the players blameless, but the coaching was so inadequate, it derailed the team completely. Do you think there's any shot that Soto does not sign with either the Yanks or the Mets? I always have respect for certain franchises. If the Dodgers have a meeting, I take them seriously. If the Red Sox have a meeting, I take them seriously. If they show any interest in the player, I take them seriously. I don't take Toronto seriously because I don't think Soto wants to park himself in Toronto. I know they have a lot of money, but I don't think they're going to get him. I do take the Dodgers and the Red Sox seriously, so I would give them each very small chances. I'd give the Dodgers a 5% chance. I give the Red Sox a 2% chance. And then I think it's between the Yankees and the Mets. And between those two, with the 93% that I have left, I think it's 63% Mets, 30% Yankees. If you put a gun to my head, I think he's going to the Mets. Because I do not think that the owner is going to let anybody else carry the Picasso out of the auction. See you later.